You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt Show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I am very happy to have back on the Goldstein on Gelt show Jim Richardson. Previously he was on the show. He spoke to us about how comedy is used by politicians, by businessmen. If you missed that interview, be sure to download the podcast at goldsteinongelt.com. Jim teaches and coaches people how to deal in a business environment as well as other environments with humor. Jim, welcome back.
Good to be here, Doug. What have you been doing all this time?
Oh man, I was trying to write some jokes. I started a file where my joke file, because that's what I learned from some of the stuff that you've written, and I kept trying to find humor in the world. But of course, I mean the financial world and everything is just so funny here.
Yeah, well, there's several ways you can do that. The best way is the way you just almost alluded to there, and that is if you're around your friends and you say something funny, that's natural humor. It just comes out of the situation. It's not forced. It's not something out of a joke book or stole from a movie. There's nothing wrong with doing the stealing. Everyone has to steal every once in a while, because when speakers are going to create a speech in an unusual situation they don't know about, then they go to the joke books and look them up by topic and see if they can find something desperately. But if it comes out of you, that's great. And what you need to do, it's a funny thing, when you say something to your friends, there's two weird things about it. First of all, your friends know you. Mm-hmm. So that when you present it to an audience, it's not your friends, which might be at work where you have a formal relationship with people. It might be if you're a business keynote speaker and you're talking to a convention of 1,000 people, or you're on the radio like I am right now with you. Then you've got to frame it so they understand. So you got to give the big introduction to explain how I was. I couldn't just start telling jokes right away. Now, the second part is the joke itself that you told in that informal situation. Guess how long it's going to stay in your head, the words in the correct sequence?
Oh, it's just a few seconds.
Exactly. We've timed this down to find you can remember it for about 20 seconds.
Wow.
And it's critical to get the correct sequence of words. Now, obviously, you can have a little piece of paper that you write the words down. But now, that would take longer than 20 seconds. The joke might be 30 words or something like that. You can write 30 words down in 20 seconds. But now with the smartphones, you're carrying around a recorder and sometimes a video recorder. So you could record that right away. And this would have two virtues. Not only would you get the exact verbiage if you got it recorded within 20 seconds, but you'd also get the delivery, mm-hmm. which is critical, how you meant the words. But if you pull the smartphone out in front of your friends and start to record it, they'll liable to yank especially if they're comedians, they'll liable to yank the smartphone away from you and start doing their act into your cell phone. So you've got to get away from them. So what is the one excuse you can use at any time to get out of a room away from people?
Got to go to the bathroom?
Exactly.
Oh, man.
That's hundreds of audiences this, and nobody fails to guess that.
No one fails to guess it. Okay, I thought I was the smart guy.
In fact, if you're really funny that day, your friends are going to think you have a serious bladder problem. So you get in the bathroom, flip out the recorder, and record it. And if you have video, hold it at arm's length and get a shot of your face, too, because maybe your facial expressions, maybe the gestures with your free hand. So hold it in your whatever. If you're right-handed, hold it in your left hand. If you're left-handed, so forth, so you can see how you naturally would move. And that's going to be recorded for all time. And then you can go back and memorize it, which is going to be harder than just...
Let me clarify this point. You're saying you go into the bathroom and you start taking video?
Yeah.
People think it's strange that way.
What do you care? This is a business.
All right. So
it's not about being shy. It's about, we aren't as shy as we think we are. The modern world makes us shy. But in the old days, in the caveman days, everybody had to stand up and talk. So there was a lot more interaction. I found when I was working with comics and hiring them in the African community in the United States, there were a lot more comedians than in the Caucasian community. So I asked a couple of guys, and I said, did all you guys go to church? Is that the common denominator? Exactly. So we were always speaking from a younger age and in front of people, much more so than our Caucasian contemporaries. So they're more intimidated. We're not as intimidated because we get to talk more at a younger age.
I thought you were saying that they were more religious, or there was more humor about religion, so they came up with more jokes that way.
here we have topic. There's two things here. The topic, the theme of what you're talking about, and the technique you use to get the theme across. So I don't care what people talk about. If I have a minister that wants to talk about stories from religion, or if I have a politician, or if I have a comic, or if I have a salesman, it doesn't really matter. All the techniques are the same. The thing that changes is the topic and the intent. So, as I said in the first interview many moons ago, the serious speaker the joke has to make some point, whereas with the comic, you can just be entertaining. It doesn't necessarily have to make a point, but you're still selling your idea, and that's the critical thing.
Mm-hmm. We are speaking to Jim Richardson, who teaches people how to write humor and how to deliver humor. He was previously on the Goldstein on Gelt show, so if you missed that interview, go to goldsteinongelt.com or check out the interview on our YouTube channel. Jim, let me follow up with something here. As a kind of serious guy, right? And I wear a tie. I have meetings in a nice office. I have a certain image that I have to portray. If I start telling jokes to people, I don't know how well that's going to go over when I say, now I'd like to plan your whole future retirement. Do you think it's appropriate for people to use humor in the business workplace?
Not the way you're describing it. No, that would be suicide. I have a better way.
Okay.
If you already know, you've done the process of getting that joke recorded so you can transcribe it and learn how to tell it. Once you do that, the very same day before 24 hours goes by, so if we're on in the evening here tonight, by tomorrow evening the same time, you should have tried to tell this to 20 or 30 different people off stage before you ever would do it in the workplace. Now, I know what you're thinking, Doug. What if somebody doesn't know 20 or 30 different people?
Well, you got social networking.
We want to do exactly mix, mingle, make friends, get in line at the post office, go from store to store to store, stand in line, telling your jokes, buying nothing. There are little potential audiences everywhere. Audiences in embryo. Your jokes can bring them to life. So after you've tried it 20 or 30 times, then you can do it in business because you know what's going to work.
Mm-hmm. I hear. And it's okay to be a joke teller. People can still take you seriously. As your position on this, from what I understood from our last conversation, is it's a way of presenting ideas that helps people to be more receptive to them.
Exactly. And this, of course, has the proviso that you're a successful joke teller. You're not the guy that puts the lampshade over his head at a party and everybody laughs because he's just being childish. Your jokes have a point, so people are going to listen. Because if they laugh, they're resonating with you. It's like a tuning fork resonating. You've automatically created a like-minded community that all agree on the same thing, because if they laugh, they've involuntarily agreed with your point.
And is it about actually making people, in fact, laugh out loud, or is there some other more subtle thing?
It depends on the joke. Will Rogers used to say that he didn't like jokes that got huge laughs because they didn't be broad as a house. He preferred the jokes that got more of a subtle response, maybe only a few seconds of laughter, and you'd nudge the person next to you and say, he's right about that. Because once they're broad as a house, people forget seconds after they've heard it. But the ones that actually resonate with people and give them some information, maybe they find out they're angry about something they didn't know they were angry about. Maybe they have a hope or a fear that they didn't really know was there, and this resolves it and makes people. People are always thinking I should tell jokes where you agree with the audience. Well, that's called conventional humor. There's another kind of humor called absurdist humor, in which you tell jokes that people may or may not agree with. And you can take a convention and try to turn it around to where you make a point that is opposite to what people generally agree about. And a great one at this was Oscar Wilde. And one of his great jokes was, the widow's hair just turned gold from grief. And you see, it took you a while to catch that one, as opposed to the other ones I was telling, because you have to put in your head together the widow's hair should turn gray, turn gold. Why'd turn gold? Because the guy's dead, and now she has all the money, so she got her hair cut, and she's celebrating. But he said that so much quicker.
Uh-huh. I thought the difference you were going to say between when people laugh out loud or when they say to their friend, hey, that was pretty funny, was what my sister-in-law once described. She grew up in England, and she said she could never understand Americans, because in England, when a joke was funny, they would all laugh. She said when the Americans would find a joke funny, they would always say, hey, that's funny. They wouldn't actually laugh.
That's actually what professional comics do. Jonathan Winters appeared looking like General Schwarzkopf right after the first Gulf War, all in uniform, and had a little riding crop and pointed up to a screen behind him and says, "We're here." And that's all he had to do, because everyone identified with the Schwarzkopf character who'd been explaining the war and pointing up to graphs in the CNN broadcasts. And you panned around the room, you saw everyone in the audience mouthing, "That's funny," and not laughing out loud, whereas the people who were with them were laughing out loud, their wives and friends. And I had experience in an advanced comedy class. I don't know if you know Don Rickles. He's somewhat controversial, and if you haven't seen him live, people don't quite get it, because it only works if he can actually drag you up on stage and tell jokes at your expense. So he kind of roasts the people in the room a lot, which doesn't always work on television quite so well. But there was a wonderful thing where he worked the first row on Saturday Night Live, which is a weekly television show here. And when I played that for my comics, I could see them all nodding their heads, and they weren't saying, "That's funny." Instead, they were saying, and I could read their lips because they were all saying the same thing, "That's how he does that."
Yes, I think it's difficult. Frankly, one of the things, maybe the reason that I'm not a comic, is that a lot of the comedy that you see is often about bringing someone up on stage and actually making them feel bad. I know that one of the things you focused on is humor that is more fundamentally humorous without actually being at the expense of a specific individual in the audience.
Yes, it's the difference between wit and humor. Wit is a corrective comedy designed to bring people back into the fold. So you're looking for people who are being hypocritical, and you want to humiliate them and get them to behave themselves and to behave correctly. Whereas humor is more of a loving thing, where you're identifying with the eccentricities of somebody and loving them for it, just kind of kidding them. So wit attacks, humor embraces.
Okay, we have been talking to Jim Richardson, who joined us now for the second time on the Goldstein on Gelt show. If you missed the first time, or if you want to tune in soon, you'll be able to see the podcast of both of these interviews on GoldsteinOnGelt.com, or you can check it out on our YouTube channel. Jim, in the last couple of seconds, could you just tell people how can they follow you or learn more from you?
Well, I guess 2 is good. The third thing you can do, the third time you can meet me, could be on my website on the World Wide Web, and it's at www.jimrichardson.com. That's Jim like James, Richardson like son of Richard, jimrichardson.com. There's literally, what kind of a crazy guy am I? 3 to 6 hours, depending how fast you read and how fast you can watch videotapes, of free tips on how to improve your delivery in real life. Tip of the iceberg, then you get to call me and become a client and really learn how to do stuff. And that's very serious, very professional. We want you to be successful at the national level. And of course, if you call from Israel, we want you to be successful at the international level. And that really helps to protect the image of the country and your businesses. So it's probably a good idea to do it. Is my phone ringing? I'm listening. Hello?
I'll have people call soon. Jim Richardson, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you, Doug.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt show.